On today's episode of Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast, we're going to be talking about the first system in our systems series, all about prospecting. Hi, I'm Karen Cooper, a wife, mom of three, real estate broker, team owner, and founder of Empowering Women in Real Estate. As a realtor, I've personally helped well over 700 families in my career, and now I help thousands of women from all across the country balance real life and real estate through daily inspiration, motivation, and actionable plans to increase their success. Listen in as I share stories and tips from my life and business and interview some of my favorite people. Hi there, I'm glad you're here for today's episode. You know, I love systems. I am a huge systems fan. I always have been. I have learned, seen by example in my business what happens when I have systems. I have seen what happens when I don't have systems. And, there is this misconception, and I think I actually said this a little bit last week in the kind of preview to this series that we're doing here. And, I think that there is this misconception that systems, routines, habits, that those things actually they take away your freedom because there's too much rigidity. But the opposite is actually true. The right systems actually give you freedom because you're not wasting time and energy thinking. You're not wasting time and energy recreating the wheel. You're not wasting time and energy going, what do I need to do next? And it doesn't matter if it's for something that you've done 10,000 times. Systems are absolutely critical. And there are 4 systems, I call them my core 4 systems, but there are 4 systems that I believe that every realtor should have. And then of course, I have a 5th one that's a bonus, and core 4 sounded better than core 5. So that's what we have. And I'm actually going to be covering each of those 5 systems, one each week as part of our systems series. So every week this month, if you're listening to this, when the episode airs, today is October 1st. And so every Wednesday of this month, there's 5 Wednesdays, we're going to be covering one of those systems. So our next 5 episodes are all going to be an episode devoted to one of those systems. And so the system that we're going to talk about today is prospecting. And this is the system, which I guess, let me back up for just one second. The 4 systems, plus a bonus, that we're going to be covering over the next 5 weeks is prospecting. That's today. And then next week, we're going to be talking about your nurture system, then your weekly update system, then your visibility system, and then our bonus system is about protecting your peace. So today is all about prospecting. And it is probably the thing that people hate the most. Anytime I talk to agents and we talk about prospecting, everybody hates it. And I think part of the reason that we hate it is because we think it has to be terrible things that we don't enjoy. And we're actually kind of taught that. I can't tell you how many agents I have talked to over the years that have said, my broker just says I need to, call people, or my broker just says I need to go door to door and door knock, or, you don't have to do those things anymore. There was, I'm sure, a time when, door-to-door sales and cold call sales, they still have a place. My phone, I must block 5 calls a day that I get spam calls that are those kinds of things. But they're not, I don't think, the most effective. They're definitely not enjoyable for the person who is doing them. But you have to have prospecting. If you don't have a prospecting system in your business, then you don't have a business. And I'm really sorry to tell you that, but it's true. There has to be a lead generation mechanism in your real estate business in order for you to have a business. It does not just come to you. It does not. You have to be doing intentional activities, proactive activities on a consistent basis in order to bring business in. And so what I want to cover for you today with the prospecting and my vision, my thought for these episodes throughout this month as we go through this series is that these are going to be kind of more sort of concise, kind of bite-sized episodes as we dig into each one of these systems. And my thought here is prospecting, I want you to open your mind, and I want you to think differently about what prospecting means or could mean, or what it should look like in your business. And the really beautiful thing about the way, our world has changed, social media has changed, the internet changed the world. Social media has changed the world, right? AI is changing the world, good, bad, or indifferent, like it or not. There's things about all those things that I think we love. There's things about all those things that we don't love, but they exist. And actually the beautiful thing about a lot of those things is they've opened up more opportunities for us, more ways to prospect, more ways to connect with people than we've ever had before. If you wanted to connect with friends from high school, that could be somebody who would, want to buy or sell a house with you. In the days before social media, or in the days before the internet, you would have to find their phone number and call them up. Like, you couldn't just stay connected to them. Now you can be connected to them online, and it's a much more gentle, I'm not having to call these people and say, hey, don't forget about me. When you're ready to buy a house 3 years from now, don't forget about me. We don't have to do it that way anymore. We can show up on social media, for example, because of course that is part of my prospecting. You can show up on social media without having to talk about selling a house every day, without having to talk about, who do you know who wants to buy or sell a home. The world is different. And so we need to embrace that. And so I am hoping that actually gives you some hope and maybe some excitement about how to approach a prospecting system when it comes to your real estate business. So your prospecting, in my experience, my opinion, your prospecting should be two things. It needs to be authentic to you, and I call this my daily business builders, which I'm going to dig into in a second, and it should support the pillars in your business. That's it. Those are the two things. Authentic to you. Authentic means you're going to be able to do it without hating your life, right? Because if it's authentic to you, then it resonates with you. It's not that I get up every Monday morning and I'm so thrilled and excited to, to do my prospecting, but I get up on Monday morning and I don't hate that I have to do my prospecting because it's authentic to me and it makes sense for me. So it needs to be authentic to you. I call these my daily business builders. And then the second thing is it needs to support the pillars in your business. So, we don't need to do things just for the sake of doing things. You want to do things that actually make sense in your business, right? And this is maybe not a great example, but it's the first one that I'm thinking of. But if one of my pillars is not open houses, and for me it's not, one of my pillars is not open houses, then why would I spend my weekends doing open houses if it's not one of my pillars, right? For many years, print ads were actually one of the pillars in my real estate business. I actually got a ton of business from print ads. Now we're talking 15 years ago. I got a lot of business from print ads. But over time, I could see, because I track, right? And I hope that you do too. I track my business. I track my leads so I could see where my leads were coming from. And then more importantly, I could see where my closed transactions were coming from. And so over time, what was once, 5, 6, 8, 10 closed transactions a year from print ads was suddenly like 2 a year. And print ads are very expensive. So that didn't make any sense anymore. So why would I continue using print ads for prospecting if that's not where my business is coming from? So that's why your activities need to support those pillars in your business. And, two of the systems that we're covering, prospecting this week and then nurturing next week, they are both around getting business, right? Generating business, but they're different. Prospecting, to me, it's something that you're doing proactively, right? And I'm going to share with you in a minute what my prospecting looks like, what my prospecting system is. Whereas your nurture system, and we'll dive into this all next week, but your nurture system is more passive, right? So that's kind of the difference between the two things. So prospecting system needs to be authentic to you. It needs to support the pillars in your business. And Your pillars they're 3 to 5 places. And I really believe it needs to be no fewer than 3, because if you only have 1 or 2 pillars, then you are very susceptible to more ups and downs in your real estate business than should be reasonable, right? We already know the real estate business is one that has a lot of ups and downs in and of itself. And if you have too few pillars, if something happened or changes in one of your pillars, then you've got a problem. You've got a big problem in your business. Whereas if you've got 3 to 5, one can pick up where another one is falling down, right? Let's go back to the example of the open houses. If you only have 2 pillars and one of your pillars is open houses, well, what happened in, March of 2020 with COVID, all of a sudden there were no more open houses. And so if that was a pillar that you were relying on, then you've got a problem. So that's why you need to have, in my opinion, a minimum of 3. Conversely, I think you need no more than 5, and you shouldn't have more than 5, because what is that saying? Like, if everything is important, nothing's important, right? So the whole idea of the pillars is it's an area of focus and concentration. And if you've got 10 pillars, well, it's impossible for you to really go deep in the way that you need to go because you're spread too thin. So 3 to 5 is that kind of magic place. And those are the places where the majority of your closed business comes from each year. Or if you haven't done enough business to have enough transactions to have 3 to 5 pillars, then it might be where you want your business to come from. So if you have never done an exercise before to identify your pillars, it's very simple. And again, it's going to depend on volume is really what's helpful to draw conclusions and to see patterns. So if you don't have significant volume or enough volume over the past, say 12 months, to see a meaningful pattern for those pillars, then maybe you want to go for 2 years worth of history, right? Or maybe 3 years worth of history. And so you list out all of your transactions. You can get that you can pull it from your MLS. You maybe already have a spreadsheet or a tracker where you keep this. Maybe your brokerage is like mine, where we have a dashboard where I can pull the reports and see all of that information. Or if you don't have, ask your broker and your broker can pull that. If you're relying on the MLS, make sure that, there's typically transactions, all of us have them, that don't make it in the MLS because maybe it's new construction or it's sold off market. So make sure that you add that stuff in. So list out all of your transactions and then get very, very specific on where that transaction came from. So for example, you don't just want to say, well, that was a referral, because that's not specific enough. Referral is great, and referrals might be one of your pillars, as it is one of mine, but get more specific. Was it a referral from somebody who was in your database? Was it a referral from a vendor or another business? Was it a referral from another agent? Get more specific. And then once you've listed out all the sources, then you can go back and see, okay, what are the 3 to 5 that where the majority of my closed business came from. Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to ignore something that generated, 3 or 4 transactions for you if it's not one of your top pillars, but that's not going to be your primary area of focus. And so that's what you want to identify with those pillars. And then what you're going to do is you're going to identify what your activities are that support those pillars in your business. I call them my daily business builders. I used to do them daily. Now I just do it once a week. But the idea is it's just something that is going to be a proactive type of prospecting that you're going to do consistently, and that is going to support those pillars. Now here's the thing, before I get in and tell you what my pillars are and what my daily business builders are. Here's the thing that I want you to remember, and this is a hill that I will die on. Small actions repeated consistently will outperform massive action taken every now and then. And this is one of the mistakes and one of the things that I see agents do again and again and again. Most agents will have periods of their career, if not their entire career, where they are on the real estate roller coaster. They're up for a couple months and then they're down for 6 months, and then they're up for a month and then they're down for 2. And, it's that constant up and down, up and down. And here's why. It's because they don't have a consistent prospecting habit. Why do they not have a consistent prospecting habit? It's typically because we create a prospecting habit or a prospecting system that, that is so complicated and so in depth and is so takes so long to do, has 43 steps, takes 3 hours, that, you might be able to do it once or twice on a random, second week of September. But then on that third day, when the school calls and your kid's sick, or you wake up and you're not feeling well, or you have a parent or another family member, I got a call a couple weeks ago. My aunt fell and they're taking her by her ambulance. And so there went my whole day, right? I was there and thank God I was able to go and she's fine. But, I'm able to drop everything and run and be there. But we create these habits that are so hard. You need to create a prospecting habit that you can do on your absolute worst day. Tickets are now available for our 5th annual Empowering Women in Real Estate Conference. Every year, hundreds of women from all across the country gather for a day full of inspiration, motivation, connection, and learning. I know you're going to walk away from this event feeling excited, rejuvenated, and ready to move forward in your business. Our event is on October 7th in Ashburn, Virginia. You can get all of the details on our website. Go to empoweringwomeninrealestate.com and click on the conference. On your absolute worst day, when everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, the home inspection is threatening for, this is going to fall apart for this listing, appraisal came in low on that one, and think about it, those are really what the majority of our days are like. And so we tend to make these systems so hard that we can't do it consistently. And the reason we do that is because we don't do it consistently, right? And so you have to do this massive effort, this massive action that is not sustainable over the long haul in order to get business flowing. But then once business starts flowing, you can't keep that up. And so you drop it so that you can focus on your clients, right? And we're very proud to say that we drop that because we are focused on our clients, right? But then, a month or two goes by and those clients all, go to closing, and now you have nothing in your pipeline again. And now you have to do it again. And you have to start and do that massive action to get things flowing again, which is very hard and it's very stressful. Instead, if you just have small actions that you can do consistently over and over again on your worst day, on your busiest day, then that's how you get to keep that consistent flow of business. I have not gone a month without a closing for years. Years and years, decade, 2 decades, because of the consistency of the prospecting. So let me tell you what my prospecting system looks like. So first, let me tell you what my pillars are. My pillars are my sphere and my repeat clients, and that includes referrals. So I kind of lump these people together because I kind of treat them the same and I market to them the same. So that would include my sphere of influence, the people who are in my database, my sphere, my database, clients I've done business with in the past, and then referrals from all of those people, right? Referrals from repeat clients, referrals from my sphere, referrals from my database. So that's one pillar. My second pillar is geographic farming. I have been farming my area, actually I farm the entire zip code for more than a decade, probably about 15 years. That is a big pillar for me. Social media is a big pillar for me. And then agent to agent referrals is a big pillar for me. There was a period of time where business to business referrals were big for me. Print ads were big for me. So your pillars are also meant to ebb and flow. And that's why it's really important too that you do the exercise. I do it every year to see where my business came from. So then I can adjust my pillars and I can adjust my prospecting system and my nurture system accordingly based on what my pillars are. So those are my pillars. This is my prospecting system, and I call these my daily business builders. These are my goals that I do every week. I write 4 notes. I do 4 calls or messages. Now, let's just be honest. I don't do the calls because I don't like to make the calls. That is not authentic to me. So I usually am doing a text message or a DM, but some kind of outgoing proactive message. I have 1 pop by delivered, and really more now. That's more like a kind of like a gift. I send something to someone. I give 4 referrals, and I add 1 new person to my database. And I do that every single week. And I have done that every single week. The only time I don't do this is when I'm on vacation, right? So I take a couple of vacations a year. I usually, the last 2 weeks of December, I take that time off because all my kids are home. So I'm not doing proactive work then. So I would say that I am probably doing all of this consistently for about 46, 47, 48 weeks a year. And all that effort compounds. And even now, I've shared this on the podcast before. I have shifted my business now to a point where for the last 6 years, I no longer serve clients myself personally. I still have this prospecting system. I still have this prospecting habit, and I do it every single week, and I generate a lot of business, and I refer that business all out to my agent partners, and I'm able to have a really nice income as a result. I've got closed well over 15 million in sales volume this year, and we've still got, 3 months to go in the year. And it all, literally every single one of those transactions have come from those pillars and that prospecting system, those daily business builders. So, there were times of my business, and the reason I really like this system that I've created for myself is that, and I've been following this, I've followed some version of this system really for my entire career, which is 23 years, but really I've most kind of systematized this over the last more than 10 years, almost 11 years now. And, there were times of my business where I was in more of a growing phase, right? Where I was trying to get, when I had been a managing broker, and I came back to the field of real estate sales. It's been over 10 years now. And I basically had to start my business over. And so when I did that, those activities that I gave you, and those numbers were actually even higher, I did those not just once a week. I did those every day. I wrote 5 notes a day. I called or messaged or text 5 people a day. I delivered 1 pop-by per day myself personally, Monday through Friday for like 3 years. I gave 3 referrals every day. I added 1 person to my database every day. And so now I'm in a different phase of my business. And so that's why you see that adjusted. And I block time for this every Monday morning. I prefer now to do it once a week. It takes me 60 to 90 minutes, and then I'm done for the week. And because this is something that I can do, on my worst week, when it's a short week, I'm busy with other things. We're in conference season. I have a massive, basically 2-day conference that's happening next week. One day is our Empowering Women in Real Estate conference. The next day is essentially an entire second conference, which is our Team Advance for my real estate team. So this is crazy time. But even with crazy time, I can still make this happen every week because I prioritize it. It is the first thing that I do on Monday mornings when I sit down at my desk. And it is a system. I don't argue with myself. I don't second guess it. It's blocked on my calendar, and I prioritize getting this done. Here's the other thing. Just like I can make this more when I'm trying to get my business moving, or I need to get a more of an influx of business, when things are in such a way that I can't do very much, I can also dial it back. A lot of people know my history. I have a long history with a rare type of breast tumor. It's a type of sarcoma. And I've had 10 surgeries and 30 radiation treatments. And, a lot of that was happening in a very kind of compressed period of time. And so there were periods when I was going through that, whether it was the bigger surgeries or, or the treatments where I couldn't do as much. Like I just couldn't, I was off for weeks, a month plus at a time where I just really wasn't able to. But here's what I did. I know myself enough to know that if I just gave myself a pass and said, I'm not going to do anything, it would be that much harder to get started again. And I knew I needed to keep momentum in my business. So when I went through those periods where I really wasn't able to do much, I still had my daily business builders. I still had my prospecting system. But instead of doing all of those things, my goal was to write 1 note a week. Just 1 note. And I knew that I could do that. I knew that no matter how I felt, I could do it. And it gave me something positive to focus on. And here's the thing about prospecting and having a prospecting system like this. When it is so manageable like this, I almost always do way more than what my goal number is, right? Whether it was 1 note a week or now it's, 4 notes, 4 calls, 1 pop by, 4 referrals, add 1 contact. I almost always do a lot more than that. And it's because you get in the rhythm and you get the momentum. And because this is such a system for me, because this is such a habit for me, I'm constantly thinking about it, right? So when I very rarely sit down at my desk on Monday morning and go, okay, who am I going to write my notes to? I don't know who to write a note to, because it is such a part of me that as I go through the week, I'm seeing opportunities, and I'll just jot myself a little note because I only do it once a week, right? So I just jot myself a little note. Send a note to so-and-so for this. Send a note to so-and-so for this. Send a note. And so I end up doing a lot more because it's just becomes kind of a part of who I am. I'm looking for opportunities to connect. And so how does this link up with my pillars? So obviously notes, I write notes to people in my sphere of influence, my database, my repeat clients. Hey, I was just out in your neighborhood this weekend, and I thought about you guys. I hope you're doing great. Or, hey, I just happened to drive by your house. In your case, you might say, hey, I was just driving by your house because I was showing houses in the area, and, your landscaping looks great. I hope you guys are doing great. Like that's an easy note to write. Thank you notes, easy notes to write, right? Somebody gives you a referral, I send them a thank you with a little something. Notes work with my geographic farming. When all of my postcards that I send for my geographic farming, they have a QR code, and that QR code is linked to something. Sometimes it's a vendor list. Sometimes it's get a CMA for your home. It kind of rotates based on what the theme of the postcard is. And so when they scan that postcard, I collect information. And so then I can send a note. Or if somebody contacts me, this happens all the time. They'll contact me because they got my farming postcard, or they saw my sponsorship for something, and they email me or they call me about something. And then that's a great excuse for me to then send them a note. Social media, I love to take online, offline. And so when I connect with someone on social media, and then I'm able to kind of bring them further into my world. And so I might write a note to somebody that maybe it's a past client that I saw on social media. They just got a new dog. Well, that's a great reason to write a note, right? Oh, so cute. Or, gosh, I saw that your daughter just graduated from high school, and that's so amazing. Congratulations, right? Lots of reasons. So that all supports agent-to-agent referrals, right? Same thing. I can write notes to thank them, either for them taking care of my clients or for them sending me a referral or whatever that happens to be. The calls and the messages, it's the same thing. It supports all of those pillars. So for really any of those things, anything that could be a note could be a call, right? Sometimes I'll do the call and the note, or I'll do the text and the note, right? Because you can do multiple things there. The pop-bys, I send those out for all sorts of different reasons. Go back to the example of, the family that you saw on social media that they just got a puppy. Well, what if you dropped off, and I've done this, you dropped off a little goodie bag of things for the new puppy. In fact, we have really cute little tags that we do that has kind of like a pet theme that we use for that. Like how cute is that? You get a referral. Instead of sending a note, you could, or in addition to the note, you could drop off a little gift or ship something. Send, there's desserts. There's all kinds of different things that you can send to people. You can use that for your pop by. For referrals, I very rarely struggle to give for referrals. Like, it is such a part of me, because I know that what I want, in order to get what I want referrals. I know I need to give it to. And so it's an energetic exchange. And so giving referrals, it could be geographic farming. Sometimes my postcards are multiple times a year, I'm promoting a local business, or somebody scans the QR code and they get my vendor list. Or this happens all the time. They'll contact me and say, hey, I got your postcard about the carpet cleaner, but I'm looking for a painter. Who do you recommend? And so that gives me an opportunity to give a referral. I love giving referrals to other agents. I love connecting agents. It's something that I do a ton of. And I love being that resource of the resource. And so that's an opportunity to give a referral. Social media, if you're in any local Facebook groups, chances are you see the post all the time. Hey, I'm looking for a carpet cleaner. I'm looking for a roofer. I need an electrician. Who's the best, pet groomer? And so those are the posts that I make sure I pay attention to. I intentionally look for them, and I make sure that I'm always sharing. And then I become that resource. And so it's happened many times where someone has reached out to me and said, hey, I noticed that in this group, you often commented with, seems like you know a lot of great people. I'm actually looking for this. Do you know someone? So that's great for that. And then adding somebody new to your database. This is the hardest one. This has always been the hardest one for me. It's probably the hardest one for you. And, I have to think about it. And one of the best, but here's the thing. Don't avoid adding to your database, because if your database is either growing or it's shrinking, there is no in between. And you have to be constantly adding, because you don't know who in your database has moved on and done business without you. And it's going to be constantly shrinking. So you have to be constantly adding to it. You have to be constantly filling the bench, right? And so adding one new database contact. And so sometimes it's people that I connect through social media, right? I take that online, offline, and then now I'm going to add them into my database. Or it could be an agent that gives me a referral. Well, now I'm going to add them to my database, because since agent-to-agent referrals is a pillar in my business, I have all those agents in my database. So I can add this. So I might want to add an agent there. Somebody from my geographic farm, right? The 2,500 postal addresses that I mail to every month, obviously they're not all in my database, but when someone contacts me, they scan the QR code, they reach out for whatever, then they kind of start moving down the funnel. They come further into my world, and now they get added into my database. The referrals that I receive from my sphere of influence or my past clients or whoever, well, then they get added into my database. When I meet new people, they get added into my database. One of my favorite things to do when I am doing my daily business builders each week, and especially if I'm, some weeks it flows really easily, right? I've got lots of notes from things that are going on, and it's super fast and easy. Other weeks it might be a little struggle. My favorite thing to do is I will pull up my calendar and I will look at the previous week, because as I'm looking through my week, then it's like the opportunities jump out at me. Well, I had a phone call with this agent who wanted to learn about my real estate team. That's a great person to make a call to. Or that's a great person to send a note to. Hey, thanks for talking to me. Or I'll check my text messages. Oh, that's right. I gave this referral to that person. I gave this referral to that person. I can look at my calendar and I can see, my family went out to dinner at, this local restaurant, and I ran into, so-and-so. They're not in my database. So let me add them. So looking at your calendar can be a great way. And one thing that you can also do, and I have done this before, if you're stumped, is take a screenshot of your calendar. So this is what I do. Take a screenshot of my calendar. I load it into ChatGPT. And then I say to ChatGPT, this is my prospecting system. This is what I want to do. I want to do 4 notes. I want to do 4 calls. I want to deliver 1 pop by. I want to give 4 referrals. I want to add 1 person to my database. This is what I've done in the past week. What do you recommend? And it will actually recommend to you, things that you can do. Like, I remember I did it once as an example for my team. And in that particular week, my cleaners, I'd had my house cleaners come to my house. And so one of the things that they said, give 4 referrals, is how about you do a social media post, talking about your cleaners. You worked with them for this many years. They've been so great. That's a referral, right? You're promoting another business. So that's what that system looks like for me. And this is not rocket science. And you might hear this again and think, 4 notes, like that's nothing. But it's the compound effect, right? It's so impressive to say, I make 100 calls a day. How many days do you really make 100 calls? And I know some people that do it, but you probably don't like it for one. And for two, you can't keep that up every day. Like it's just impossible. I'd rather do a smaller amount and then have that compound. Let the compounding do the work for you. You don't have to make this, work. What is the saying? Work smarter, not harder. So that is my system. That is my prospecting system. And because it is so authentic to me, I can do this again and again and again, and I have, and that is really where the power is. So I hope that this has been eye-opening to you. I would love to know what your prospecting system is. Come and message me on Instagram. I'm at karen.w.cooper. And then next week, we're going to be talking all about the nurture system. So until then, stay well. Thank you for listening to Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast. Click subscribe to be notified every Wednesday when our latest episode is released, and be sure to check out our group on Facebook.